Warning: this video will contain spoilers for Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Season 3 and the 2 previous seasons. Not too surprising. If you mind getting spoiled, you best stop right here. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the video. Now that we got the spoiler warning that some people care about out of the way, let's do the recap. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX was the sequel to the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. It took place on an island with an academy where students learned how to get better at the card game. Season 1 seemed to have problems deciding what it wanted to be, with two very uneven halves. Season 2 followed, and sadly wasn't much of an improvement, as it was made from a scrap movie idea with a bunch of stuff only put in there to fill running time, which neither me nor the fanbase were very fond of. And so it is up to the next season to pick up the pace. Which is what we're talking about today. I have my Obelisk Blue jacket ready, so let's get this show on the road. Professor Viper joins Duel Academy while bringing the best students from the other 4 academies with him. He also announces a big event where each student gets a special bio band that'll measure the person's performance while dueling. If someone refuses to duel at all, they will get expelled. And as much as I could save this for later, I think I might as well spill the beans and announce that Professor Viper is a bad guy. His plan is to collect energy from the students and use it to awaken this strange entity. And while this has a lot of parallels to Season 2, with an evil puppet master using the students for his plans, it's all done much better this time around, which is strange given how much I hate dual energy as a concept in this franchise. The filler is very minimal, with time being spent introducing the new characters to us. Jaden's new best friend, Jesse Anderson, sorry Cyrus, the quiet and serious Axel Brody, the cool Jim Cook with his pet Shirley, and Adrian Gecko, who didn't trust Viper before it was cool. That's the 4 students. Of course, one of them does stand out and has some quite problematic elements to his design. So, before we continue, let's address the elephant in the room. The guy is called Adrian Gecko, but he doesn't have any lizards in his deck. Who the hell came up with that? Sorry. Over time, it becomes noticeable that the biobands are draining too much energy. So the heroes decide to confront Viper, and once they get through some extra duels, Jaden plays against Viper. We learn the professor's tragic backstory with the entity promising to resurrect his dead son, but never mind that. Jaden wins and the story is over. Wow, that went by really fast. Only 15 episodes. Oh well, at least it didn't really drag. Wait, why are we in a desert? With the energy collected, Duel Academy has moved to another dimension. I can't say I predicted that happening. Aside from the fact that Jaden did have a vision of this place very early on in this season, but that's foreshadowing for ya. Anyway, our presumed antagonist is gone, and now we focus on this strange entity itself, which has decided to make the son of Bonaparte into its new host. Food and medical supplies are dwindling, while our heroes don't know any way out. The show has shifted its focus completely, and we get this desert arc, so to speak. Now, you'd think this would mean that our heroes would now be forced to explore this brand new world where dual monsters are real and all, but that's not exactly the case. Aside from exploring a submarine that's strangely in the middle of the desert, our heroes mostly stay close to the academy building, However, since dying of starvation wouldn't be that fun to watch, we as the audience get to see the bad guys summon actual monsters. And also transform some of the students into monsters too. And also creating the dual ghoul disease, which basically turns the students into zombies. Watching this felt a bit irritating to me, because the bad guy conjures forth things like a dungeon master flipping through the monster manual. I would have preferred if our antagonist had a more concrete plan and stuck to it. Now then, let's escape this different world. With a transmission between the two dimensions, a big duel is held between Zane and Jesse. With enough dual energy, an opening is to be created, a capsule with the legendary Rainbow Dragon card will be sent through it, and with its power, everyone should be able to escape.
Everybody got that?
Yeah, I have no idea how any of this is supposed to work. This was the ace card of Jesse's deck. It required an ancient tablet to be made, which was lost, and Jesse tried to find it, a plot point established earlier in the season. And now it just has been found in the normal world. The card was made, and with no explanation given, it has the power to transport buildings through dimensions. That's one huge plot contrivance if I ever heard one. But whatever, with the card in his hand, Jesse joins Jaden's duel with the entity. Well, I guess he is Jaden's new best friend. It only makes sense. Anyway, sometimes during the duel, the entity abandons the boy and reveals itself to be Yubel.
Who?
The duel is enough to open the gate to the other world, the whole building and the students are brought back safely, and all is well in the world. Except for Jesse, he was left behind, which drives Jaden mad. He's feeling responsible for all that has happened, so he intends to go back to the other world and save his best friend. With many others wanting to come along, which opens the second half of this season. Gosh, I hate to say it, but it's once more a similar pattern to Season 2. We had a promising start, something that seemed to shake up the status quo, and then a failure to deliver on it. The heroes barely explored anything in the other world. This Yubel entity could have just created a storm around the island, and with this stupid dual ghoul infestation, it would have worked just as well as a scenario where everyone would be trapped. The great potential that was provided by the new environment was completely wasted. Anyway, I neglected to explain who Yubel was. Well, given how Jaden seems to know her and we don't, implies a backstory that we were not aware of. And how could we? It's a retcon! Jaden got the Yubel card from his father. It was an actual dual monster spirit, and it messed with the people around Jaden. Then, when Jaden won the art contest, yes, seriously, the art contest that was revealed to us in Season 2, that's the one. He requested that the Yubel card should be sent into space as well, in a different capsule, hoping that the space waves would pacify her. A request which was shockingly granted. Jaden then had some trouble sleeping, so his parents, which we still never see, had Jaden go through a medical procedure which ended up erasing all of his memories of both Yubel and the art contest. And that's why he couldn't remember any of that. And it turns out that unbeknownst to everyone, Yubel gained a physical form, fell to Earth, with only its arm surviving the impact, and she convinced Viper to help her get revenge on Jaden. Oh, great. So this retcon builds upon my most hated part of Season 2. It tries to explain the nonsense of Jaden not remembering anything. Sure, I guess it is an explanation, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. It's still stupid. Anyway, let's continue with the show. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention that Atticus, Alexis's brother, has officially joined the party, so to speak. He was not at all present throughout the first half of the season, and it's not like there was a scene where he found the hole in the ground where the Dual Academy stood and went,
Hey! I've been in Reno for 6 weeks. Did I miss anything? What the... Ugh.
or something of the sort. He was forgotten about by the writers, and we're just left to assume that he simply wasn't doing anything noteworthy during a zombie outbreak. But enough of that nonsense, back to the plot, which does feel quite different from this point on. We finally see a bit more of the other world, even if it is implied that it's likely a different world entirely, making the first goal to figure out if Jaden's best friend is here or not. We see mines, wastelands, some villages, and yes, monsters willing to attack our heroes. And I think this might be the best time to mention something. Earlier in the desert arc, we had characters be attacked by monsters, which forced them to reach for their decks and summon their own monsters. This implied that the rules of the card game don't matter anymore and everything is allowed. But this created problems later on where a bunch of dual ghouls were attacking people with cards willy-nilly should they refuse to play against them. Like, why do these guys want a one-on-one game? If they all can just pick a card, use it, and win, then why not just keep doing it? This made things feel really shaky, so now in the second half, only fights within duels exist. Naturally, this could raise some questions, like what would happen if you refuse to play a game against one of those monsters? And if the answer is that they would simply beat you up, what's the point of playing a lengthy game if you can just bash someone? But I get it. You're best not to question things, and this helps to deal with the bigger glaring issues that existed beforehand. Besides, I'd mostly prefer to get answers as to what constitutes a monster and what constitutes a duelist, because it seems like it's possible to be both, which makes lines such as "I'll summon myself to the field" possible, and if that's not a reason to have a small existential crisis, then I don't know what is. Now then, coming back to the plot, everything is in a pretty rough state, as the monsters have control over everything and make the lives of the people here into a nightmare. Still, Jaden doesn't care too much about that and mostly just wants to find Jessie. And that's not me snarkily pointing out some flaw in the writing. This is how it's presented. Jaden is obsessed with rescuing his best friend. Not just because of him being in danger, but also because our hero feels that he's responsible for everything that Yubel has done. She wanted revenge, so now Jessie has to pay. Only natural for Jaden to feel much more uneasy in this situation. This does bother some of his friends, especially when he potentially puts others at risk. Sometime after another game against a bad guy, his friends get infected with something that makes them second guess Jaden even more, which I think is a rather cheap move. They had their doubts to begin with. This only serves the purpose of them becoming more emotional when blaming Jaden for everything that's happening to them. And by that I mean them getting kidnapped and then killed over the course of a duel that Jaden plays. Wait, I'm sorry. I meant to say, they get sent to the stars. That's the term they use in the English dub. I guess during the first half of the season nobody died, plus we had the whole dual ghoul thing present, so death as a concept was easily ignored. While here, people do turn into light particles and fly to the sky, so the dubbing team called it being sent to the stars. It's incredibly dumb and does make these more dramatic moments a bit harder to take seriously. So anyway, Jaden's friends get sent to the stars, which makes him lose his mind. No more Mr. Nice protagonist. He achieves victory, but gets blamed by Cyrus for the death, the sending of all his friends to the stars, and is left all alone as everyone turns their backs on him. And in this moment of solitude, his dark side approaches him. We abandon Jaden for a bit, focus on the others, and when they are finally reunited with Jaden, it turns out that he has become the Supreme King, the evil ruler of the monsters. Yeah, I think this is a good moment to stop and talk about what just happened. Ever since the start of the series, Jaden has been a beacon of optimism. Season 1 had him only get really worried a few times, with things mostly revolving around whenever or not he could win a game, which wasn't very interesting. Season 2 gave him a moment of crisis where he couldn't see his cards, but that didn't really mean much in the long run. Season 3, on the other hand, puts him in a serious situation where his ideals are being challenged. Playing for fun is off the table. Playing for his friends became the goal, but in the end, he lost everyone. This left him with only one potential goal: playing to win, playing to be the strongest, playing to be the best. And that's why he became a villain. Supposedly, Kazuki Takahashi felt like Jaden did not evolve all that much over the course of the series, and this was to remedy that. This does not end up lasting all that long, all things considered, and a bit after we get two more friends offering themselves up, which for the most part concludes this Supreme King arc pretty quickly. I'll talk more about the whole execution of it all at the end of the video. For now, let's continue. There's about a dozen episodes left, with a couple related to Adrian, a character that was seemingly forgotten about by the show, despite the importance that he was given when he decided to team up with Yubel. Now, why did I not mention this earlier in my review? Because it was not relevant at all. He only starts doing truly bad stuff now when he sacrifices his own sister for his master plan. That's right, this rich kid is willing to offer up his own fiancée. They're adoptive siblings, so it's okay. Offer his own fiancée just for some power. That's quite the villainous act. All for a chance to defeat Yubel and have all to himself. However, as he's not our protagonist, he does predictably lose, so let's focus on who truly matters. Jaden receives some pep talk from Zane, because his whole confidence is a bit down.
Jaden, you must stop letting your guilt weigh you down. A lot of anime characters get an arc where they become dark and brooding bad guys like I have, and we always get over it. Just because you went as far as becoming a genocidal warlord doesn't give you any excuses.
But okay, all jokes aside, this is actually a pretty good moment. I have been critical of the story arc for Zane in Season 2 and have received some complaints from people because it is not fair to judge it solely based on that season when the true meat of the story is in Season 3. And while I don't personally agree that keeping things separate is an objectively wrong choice, I will admit that this time around things are handled much better. He's not the same asshole that we last saw. He's a partially broken man with a weak heart from all the underground duels that he played. Zane comes off like an old experienced man who made a lot of mistakes in his life. feels regret and is willing to offer up advice to both his brother and Jaden so that they can face the challenges in front of them. He ends up fighting Yubel, who uses Jaden's best friend's body and loses, of course, which in the Japanese version is implied to not just Star express him away, as he's having a heart failure, ending his existence for good. Wow, what a story arc. I wouldn't say it was perfect or anything, but as an example of taking something that I really disliked in Season 2 and fixing it, yeah, this works. A job well done. With Zane's dying words motivating Jaden, it's finally time to confront Yubel. The victory against the possessed Jesse is enough to free him. Jaden's about to go and beat Yubel for one last time, and Jesse just lays down. This guy, this blue-haired guy, was given such great importance, being declared as Jaden's best friend. The goal that we were chasing after all this time, the guy that millions of shippers online have shipped with Jaden, once he's rescued, he's just left behind. That's rich. Okay. Maybe I'm not being fair. He might be hurt, and one may argue that it's not unheard of for the protagonist to fight the final enemy on his own, without anyone... yeah! Take that, shippers! Cyrus is best friend, and if you disagree, then you have trash taste. On his way, Cyrus encountered the people who were lost, and then reveals to Jaden that he can save everyone who was sent to the stars. I mean everyone who was killed. Wait, no, I got it right the first time. Basically, Jaden can save everyone, for the most part, if he can win. Well, to be fair, we do kinda have to bring our cast back to life. There is a 4th season after all. Jaden manages to use the power of the Supreme King to stand up to Yubel. Because apparently the Supreme King is not that evil anymore. And then, in the middle of the final episode, we get a vision of the past where apparently Yubel used to be a human and was the best friend of a prince who was to one day become the Supreme King. And it was said that the prince needed a guardian, so Yubel got transformed into this entity, and Jaden is the reincarnation of the prince. Jaden, our protagonist, who was mostly a normal kid up to this point, is revealed to be the reincarnation of some prince? Yeah, everything was apparently destiny or something. Oh god, I will talk about this later, I swear. As if this wasn't jarring enough, soon after, Jaden uses the super polymerization card to fuse himself with Yubel, and the duel ends. Let me rephrase that. Yubel, the main antagonist of this whole season, who was behind everything that happened, who was just now dueling Zane in not Jaden's best friend's body, sucks to be you. For 3 episodes, Adrian for 2 episodes, Jaden for 2 episodes, and then switched over to her own body and played for 3 more episodes. We just now had a series of 10 episodes where Yubel was playing, and in the final moments, during the climax of everything, Jaden just abruptly ends the duel, fusing himself with Yubel, which makes everything okay in the end. End of story. No big grand combo that brings Yubel's life points to 0, not even Jaden destroying all of her monsters, making her surrender. He just uses a card, claims it'll fuse him with her, and that's it. the duel ends prematurely with no result. You know what? I have to address this right away. A duel that has no true conclusion isn't inherently bad on its own, as it can have a different purpose. However, when you have this big grand finale to an entire season of a series, you cannot just dismiss everything and go, the real victory was the dual monster spirit friends that we made along the way. Ugh, what a stupid conclusion. I feel compelled to say, but that's not the end of it. But in some ways, it is. Oh sure, we see the good guys make it back home safely, but right after we get Cyrus saying that Jaden was sent to the stars. Which, okay, I know that this is likely meant in a different way from before, as Yubel claimed to fly into space to fight some sort of evil light. No relation. But given how this was a dumb code word for being dead in the dub, it does leave the audience with the impression that Jaden is dead, as if he offered himself up and now exists in the afterlife with Yubel. And no, this is not me making assumptions. That's how I took this ending when I was watching it for the first time on TV. However, even at the time, it wasn't too hard to figure out the truth on your own with some Google searching. Namely, that there was one more episode to this season in Japan. It was just a clip show where everyone was sad that Jaden was gone. Eventually they start to have flashbacks to what happened in the previous episode, and then Jaden crash lands on the island, asks about some shrimp, and that's that. No explanation as to if he defeated the light, what it was in the first place, nor where Yubel is. It's over. The English dub ended season 3 with the implication that our hero might be dead, while the Japanese original had one more episode which only existed to say, he's fine. Gosh! Just as was the case with the 2 previous seasons, what we saw was a mess with a lot of holes in it. However, I will nonetheless say that it was the most fascinating mess of them all. This season stood out a lot from what came before. First off, we had a ton of callbacks to things from the past. Characters, places, and things appearing left and right. It almost felt like they were planning to make this the final season and wanted to have a big send-off or something. It's such a shame that a lot of it was done with very little thought put into it, like the interdimensional device being located on the tennis court from season 1, for example. Plus, there's a few continuity flops, but those can be blamed on the English localization team being forgetful. Secondly, are the new cast members. And I'm not talking about Bonaparte's son, I mean the 4 new students. A much bigger addition than what season 2 offered, but it leaves a bit to be desired. Jim is of no direct plot significance until it is out of nowhere revealed that he has the Eye of Orichalcum. No relation. A MacGuffin eyeball. That's it. Jesse is of course more relevant with his Rainbow Dragon card, which is another MacGuffin, and his rescue is technically the end goal of the second half, but that gets forgotten about around the midpoint, where things start to focus on evil Jaden, which makes Jesse's importance much less felt. Then there's the character who I didn't think much of at first, but have definitely grown fond of over time. Axel Brody. He does have some layers, and him overcoming his fear of confronting the Supreme King is actually one of my favorite moments of this season. And last is Adrian Gecko, our secondary antagonist. I would love to say that he was fine, just forgotten about for most of the runtime. However, in his duel against Yubel, it is said that Adrian does not have a bit of evil in him. He has a pure soul, and despite his actions, he only wishes to create a perfect world where everyone will be happy. This guy right here, I'm supposed to believe that this bastard is some sort of saint? That coarse, dry, warm-blooded, sunken-eyed gecko? I am insulted that the show would imply that, and I'm glad that he's been sent to the stars for real and does not ever make a comeback. As a whole, I have mixed feelings on these 4 blokes. When the season is at an early stage, their inclusion feels very justified, as everything is very been there, done that, for our regulars, so they add something different to the mix. Then comes the desert arc and things are still mostly okay. However, once the big venture into the other dimension starts, half of them are gone, while Axel and Jim become bench warmers, so to speak. They do eventually get a ton of attention, but that's just because the main cast is out of commission. Frankly, plenty of characters are in even worse positions, with Aster, Zane, Crowler, and Adrian's sister Echo being implied to have gotten transported into the other dimension with everyone else, but only showing up later when the team is running short. Feels like an aspect of the story that could have been handled much better. Thirdly, the other dimension stuff. It was a bold and different direction for the show to take, but I can't say I entirely like how it was handled. We get implications that 12 different worlds exist, but is that important at all? Does that matter? Couldn't we just had a human world and the dual monster spirit world? What's the point of implying that there are so many dimensions when in the end everything is so monotone, grey and dull? Quite a letdown considering what kinds of terrain can be seen on Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And finally, the plot. It would have been all too easy to create a by-the-book story about Professor Viper and Yubel using the students. One half would be about collecting energy, and the other would have been about Yubel seizing control of the island, wanting to expand to the whole world. However, it was decided that Yubel should have personal ties to Jaden, and while I take issue with parts of this whole retcon backstory, I can't deny that as a pitch, it is really good and fleshes out Jaden as a character. When looking at things as a whole, Yubel's motivation mostly makes sense and feels understandable. It's not very surprising that his storyline gets so much praise in the GX fandom. However, there are many issues with it which keep me from appreciating it as much. Aside from everything that I mentioned before, I have questions like if Yubel's goal was to turn Jaden into the Supreme King, then why was she not present at all during this time period? Did she just assume Jaden would come back for Jesse with his friends? Did she put those strange orbs into that one monster so his friends would get possessed? Did she work with any of these monster generals? And if so, why would they listen to her? Or how about, why did she bother using Jesse's body? This was her carrot on the stick to potentially direct Jaden towards her, or at least mess with him emotionally, but it doesn't come up until the very end. And even then, Jaden wins, and Jesse's body gets discarded. It feels more like an excuse to see bits of Jesse's deck a few more times before things wrap up. And what's with Yubel's voice in the English dub? She sounds so childlike, and I guess that might fit when she's just a creepy eyeball. You know, the horror trope of a monster with a child's voice.
Huh? Who's there?
Don't you remember me? Why won't you come and play, Jaden?
But when she gets her normal body, it starts to feel a bit out of place.
Jaden, I can't believe that after all this time, you still don't see what I've done for you. And for that, I can't forgive you. Soon you'll see the error of your ways.
Then again, there's a much bigger issue later on. You see, in the original Japanese version, Yubel had male and female parts on her body, and was referred to in a gender-neutral way from what I can tell. The dub made her into a full female, both in how she was referred to by others and her visual appearance. But then there's this one bit when we see Yubel as a young human in the past.
Please, my king, let that person be me.
Whoa, Yubel was born male and then became female? Is this an example of the English translation team missing something glaringly obvious and contradicting the gender of the character that they themselves insisted on firmly being female? Or was 4Kids injecting some very progressive elements into their show? Okay, we all know it's the former, right? Don't be stupid and believe they would put anything of the sort into a kids show, okay? Moving on. Also, why does Yubel get away with everything so easily? She never really expresses any regret over her actions. She committed so many despicable acts, and in the end, Jaden fuses with her. She got what she always wanted, and it feels very unearned. Also, why was Jaden's time as the Supreme King so short? It's become a popular joke online about Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, where people say, "Did you know that the happy-go-lucky protagonist of the show becomes a genocidal dictator during season 3? And yeah, I get it, it's pretty jarring and funny because of it. But in all honesty, that whole part goes by pretty quickly. And of course, I realize that it's not like one episode equals one day in terms of how the passage of time works. It could have been far more than what we see, but it's difficult for me to buy that Jaden has ruled for all that long. I feel like even William Henry Harrison would mock Jaden's time in the office. And speaking of him, why did Jaden have to team up with the 9th President of the United States? Why did Jaden have to team up with the Supreme King to defeat Yubel? He's supposedly a reincarnation of him, but they never really interact the same way the Pharaoh and Yugi did in the original series. Also, wasn't the Supreme King supposed to be a good guy, fighting against the evil light, whatever it was supposed to be? But here he's being an evil bastard until the very end, when he's suddenly not evil and becomes someone Jaden has to rely on. It feels like some script rewrites happened here and there, and that's how things got out of hand. Same with the whole evil light thing that goes nowhere. And finally, why did Jaden have to become the reincarnation of an ancient prince? My goodness, how annoyed I am at that decision, and the fanbase seems to share my sentiment. It goes against the whole idea of Jaden being a normal kid, making him into the chosen one. In all fairness, I've seen this child of destiny thing be done in several other shows before, and they were also criticized for it. But this reveal was typically done at an earlier moment in the show, which allowed it to be used to tell new stories. Here, it comes towards the end of the final fight, just to annoy us, with no time to do anything, nor any intention of coming back to it later. I'd rather have Jaden's ownership of Yubel be a random thing that just happened. It's much easier for me to buy that than all this ancient prince nonsense. I must again underline that I really do like a lot of the ideas in this season, and I mostly have problems with the details of how the story was told. Also, despite my complaining, I did enjoy season 3. I just kind of feel irritated because of how close we got to something truly amazing, but that's just my opinion. Season 3 is very highly regarded, and I get how some people are able to look past the missteps here and there, to focus on the truly inspired ideas by the writers. Some people might insist that I should have watched the Japanese original with subtitles, but that's not how I prefer to watch anime. I know that I get a much more authentic experience of the show this way. So to anyone thinking of giving this season or the show as a whole a chance, if you don't mind subtitles, then by all means, watch that version instead. Although, to be fair, I have double checked things and a lot of the plot holes are still present in the original. Plus, while I do appreciate the Japanese version having a clearer theme of maturity in the story, sorry, but getting back together with your ex-girlfriend after she has proven to be an emotionally unstable mess who tortured you and your friends is not exactly what I define as an example of responsible and mature behavior, so even in the original, not everything fits perfectly together. Now then, this video has gone on for longer than any of the previous parts. It's probably time to wrap things up. There was so much more that I wanted to mention. Cyrus being promoted to Obelisk Blue, but then wearing the raw yellow jacket for the rest of the season, which makes the 4Kids edits of the opening not make much sense. It's like they changed the color before they figured out that he wasn't going to wear blue at all. Or Bastion leaving the academy between seasons, then showing up in the other world and ending up with the rest of the crew nonetheless. Yeah, thanks. That accomplished a lot. Or how about Tanya suddenly appearing in the other world and being a real human after being turned into a tiger in the normal world in season 1? Or Blair also being there. But I should get to the end and say where I'd place this season in my ranking for the show. Comparing it to season 2, well, what's there to even say? That garbage has nothing on this decently crafted story. Comparing things to season 1 is a bit tougher. Technically, the third is far more high concept and feels much more satisfying throughout longer stretches of time. So I'm leaning towards season 3 winning here as well, but still, I must say, thinking back to that very beginning, it's kind of sad. Season 3 doesn't align all that well with how GX started. It's less like the writers took a different direction at the crossroads, and more like a 180 on a lot of the stuff that was part of GX's identity, making the protagonist into a chosen one, leaving the Dual Academy Island, and having a darker tone. Of course, this transition wasn't that badly handled, but I'm still left thinking about what the show used to be like, and if this story shouldn't have been saved for a future Yu-Gi-Oh! Show with a darker tone and a clear intention of getting to this point from the very beginning, and not the bright and colorful Yu-Gi-Oh! GX where the creators suddenly switch things up. I guess the simplest way that I can put it is, as a continuation of what came before, I'm conflicted if season 3 didn't go a tiny bit too far. But on its own, it's a good story with big ideas. There's many issues with it, but they can be looked past. Many people love it, and even if I don't, I can certainly understand their sentiment. Oh, thank the heavens, it's finally done. This took a lot of work, and I know plenty of people will still be mad at me for not being as positive as them, for covering the dub, or for how messy this video got. I am very sorry about all that, but it is what it is. This video was a major undertaking, so I just want to finally release it and be able to move on to other things. I genuinely hope that regardless of all its problems, you were able to enjoy this video, and that you will return here when I'll cover the final 4th season. Will the show go out on a bang or a whimper? What secrets does this forbidden chapter of the Duelist Academy hold? Will Farrell cover season 4 right away, or will he review Saga Emerald Beyond first? Stick around to find out. I'm Farrell the Giraffe, and I'll be seeing you next time. Oh, and my channel just reached 1,000 subscribers, so Thanks for that.